Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Center for Conscious Kids, our Conscious Living podcast series. Today, I have a very special guest, Annie Peterson Kolatkar, all the way from Los Angeles, California. Welcome, Annie.
Hi, Ashley. Hello, everyone.
It's so great to be here. We are creating this podcast through our website called accessinfinite.knowledge.com. And we today are talking about conscious relating begins with energetic integrity. Now, what does that really mean? Well, some may describe it as when we relate consciously, we are aware of the energy exchanges. That means, how we give and take back and forth while relating to ourselves and others. Today, we are going to spotlight on bad thinking. What is bad thinking, Annie?
Ashley, when you first coined those two words together the other day when we discussed what we were going to talk, I was like, whoa, that just sounded so flat. Like I never hear those two words together. And I think the reason is people have gotten so used to saying, oh, that's just negative thinking.
Right.
But even more than that, people don't even think about what was it that caused the person to create an action or a tone of voice that caused the other person to get triggered, right? And it was bad thinking. Now, we're not here to be like the ego and point out other people's bad thinking. We're not here to do that. We're actually looking at bad thinking for ourselves in how we don't even realize we have thoughts that are creating conflict.
Absolutely. And a lot of times too, we create what we would consider bad thoughts through creating judgments. So, for example, when somebody comes up to us and gives us a command or wants us to do something and we had no reason for them to be there or we don't know why they're there or what's happening, a lot of times that may create inside of us a judgment about the person. Like, why are they here? That was really fascinating. What just happened? Those kinds of things. When we create those negative judgments or those judgments towards another person, a lot of times that can start to, create more entanglements, create more conflicts inside the way of relating with other people. And so
Absolutely.
we talk about some of those triggers, right? What would you say some of those triggers are that could of what is happening between us relating?
Yeah, I think, tone of voice has to be one of the first things we talk about because in our spoken language, we put so much of what we're thinking and feeling and believing and presuming in our voice. So, an angry tone certainly is easy to recognize, but sometimes just a low tone or a depressed tone can, be equally as startling because we don't expect the person that we love to be in a low state of being.
Absolutely. And, a lot of times, even from that tone, even the spoken language that we cue into so much, the insinuations or assumptions or blaming or shaming or those sort of things, right? Those bring out that tone as well. And
That's
then,
right.
And then there's your favorite aspect too, right? Another.
I love this one because I'm a very animated person, but body language, right? Um, there's a phrase that corporate America uses to describe, eyeball rolling. It's called lateral violence. And Ashley was the one that actually, educated me about this phrase, which is a little shocking because I did come from an HR background.
Well, we did talk about it because we were creating concepts called just cultures, right? And we wanted to create, and just culture means what if we create a culture of energetically relating to each other? So we can energetically talk, we can tone or speed up or slow down, right? Or body language. And then not only
people
that
don't realize that rolling their eyeballs at somebody is bad thinking.
It sure
right? Because
is.
look at the types of thoughts that creates that. Oh, please, I'm smarter than you, or oh, please, I know better. Or I'm so impatient with you. You're taking so long to get to the point. I mean, people do this and they don't realize that they are actually sending their bad thoughts energetically over to the other person.
Right. And that's where we get even a little bit deeper into that energetic integrity or energetic bad thinking is when we feel or have feelings or emotions about the situation too, and we're trying to hide it or we don't want to experience it, but they still get emitted or transmitted to the other person, and the other person can pick up on that and of their more authentic feelings, and those authentic feelings might not be so great. And some of those bad feelings, bad thoughts, bad tones, bad languaging, and bad body languaging can all create this sense of energetic integrity kind of falling through, and our relating diminishes. You
Absolutely.
have a beautiful, dramatic reading or story that I know you'd like to share with everyone today. Would you share with us what this narrative is about that illustrates a level of, you know, lack of integrity, we could call it, or energetic, non integrous moments?
Yes, because I think this is a story that we can all relate to. I think we've all experienced this at one time or another. So, the title of this story, for your listening pleasure, is Shopping at Our Favorite Grocery Store Needless Markup. A new cashier in her early 20s is struggling to find the correct item number to enter on her cash register for a box of cupcakes. Nothing she enters allows her to proceed to the payment process for her customer, who is an older, well dressed woman dripping in gold with an expensive handbag over her arm. The woman rolls her eyes at how slow this checker is and mutters to the person behind her, "Could she be any slower?" Hearing herself talked about as if she wasn't present, the cashier glances at the woman and frowns her displeasure. She feels criticized and humiliated in front of the other customers waiting in line. Sensing this woman could be mean, she gets fearful, and her anxiety makes her fumble the box of cupcakes and she drops it on the counter. Oh gosh. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so nervous. It's my third day on the job. You really need to learn those bakery codes. You're slowing everyone down and you ruined the frosting. Look, I'm so sorry. The code in my list here appears to be wrong. Please just please be patient. I'll get some help. The cashier reaches for the phone, and before she can even enter the number, the rich woman is waving her hand dismissively. Just enter whatever miscellaneous code you can find and get me out of here. You're making me late for a party. At this point, the cashier is feeling despair coming over her that she can't get anything right for this customer who's pressuring her. She tries to appease the woman by entering a miscellaneous code, but the machine starts beeping, indicating something is wrong. Finally, the customer throws her bejeweled hands up in the air and says rather rudely, "Just get the manager." Hating the dismissive tone of voice from her customer, the young cashier picks up the phone in defeat. Her white face and pinched expression reveals she's close to tears. Everyone continues to look on impatiently or with sympathy. She can just feel all the judgments being aimed at her. The manager appears and asks the customer how he can help. "I can't believe you hired this cashier. She's an idiot. She can't even enter a bakery code so I can pay and get out of here. Man, I sure picked the wrong line to get into." The store manager agrees with his store customer because their policy says the customer is always right. He turns to the cashier and asks her to step aside so he can complete the transaction. "You know what? I'm out of here." The cashier reaches under the counter for her purse, yanks off her store apron, and throws it on the counter in anger. She walks through the automatic doors without looking back. See, I told you she was a bad hire. You're better off without her. Without commenting, the manager turns off the station light, places the registered closed sign at the end of the conveyor belt, and helps the last customers in line. With a deep sigh, he picks up the discarded apron and heads back to his office to find a new cashier.
Wow. Wow. There are multiple perspectives of bad thinking here in this story. How can we count the ways, right? We have another person in our back studio, Vegan Danielle, who would love to participate in this discussion about how this kind of story that happens in everyday life can lead to decreased integrity between everyone involved, and everyone loses in this comment and this situation. What do you feel might be the manager's perspective, Danielle?
Oh man. I was trying to look at this as like a practical business point of view as well as like an emotional supportive sort of view. And like first thought that comes to me is like, well, this, even if this woman was really stressed out, this is my strictly business view. It's bad for business, right? The
Right.
whole interaction, even if it wasn't her fault, was bad for business. And so, okay, she's gone, move on next. You know, they're just a number sort of situation. But if I try to look at it as a compassionate human being, it's
challenging,
it's
isn't it?
challenging.
Yeah.
Because I almost like got into tears when Annie was describing, because I remember after many years of not working with people, like I had a very more secluded job for some time, and then my first major job, working with people was waitressing, and
Right.
I remember being terrified, and I remember dropping a tray full of food onto a table and breaking plates and just wanting to cry and run away and, never see anybody again. So
those
I
are
totally
real
feel bad.
experiences. Yeah, real in-depth experiences and very powerful on us.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And so we wanted to discuss a little bit about some of the perceptions that the manager was experiencing. And we talked about, Annie and I work with clients and people all over the world about these kinds of consciousnesses. We call them non-integrous consciousnesses, or otherwise for this podcast, some bad thinking. But where does that come from? And so, Annie, what would be that first consciousness that the manager, we feel, was coming from?
Yeah, thank you. I call it powerless consciousness. He's in a situation where he says, I don't have control over all of this. Right?
Yeah.
And I think we've all been there, right? Other people are not for us to control.
Exactly.
So that is the first one. And then he's also, the store, the motto of the store is customer's always right. So he doesn't have control over that either, because he doesn't own the store. So there's a lot going on that he doesn't have his finger on the, to control it. I also picked up that he's got righteous anger consciousness, which is him saying essentially, you, Miss Cashier, are doing it wrong, and I need to fix you.
Yeah.
I need you to leave your cash register so I can go in and fix this problem.
Yeah, and what even further fuels that righteous anger was that policy, right? That the customer's always right, no matter what the situation is. So we went in rules and regulations, and that really denigrated the opportunity or dismissed the opportunity to really bring in, like Danielle talked about, is that human factor, right? And being cordial and supportive to all of us involved.
Right.
I agree with
and then there's one other one that's there, because we're talking about a business situation, right? He's the manager, she's the cashier, and there's a hierarchy here, right? So I call this ladder climbing consciousness, which says, in my career path, I'm more important than you, and therefore I have more power over you. Exactly. And this is a fairly common workplace consciousness that, whether we want that to be in place or not, it kind of happens because the collective in the business shares a common belief there.
Right.
I mean, even the customer is aware that the manager has more power, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. But Ashley, I would love your take on the impatient customer, the older woman.
Yeah, that impatient customer, and really, let's give a shout out to Danielle here. What does she feel
Yes.
that the impatient customer's perception was? What happened in your mind in that interaction?
You know, the first thing that comes to mind is like people naturally gravitate or tend to naturally gravitate towards a gang mentality, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like but they also want to be the popular gang, you know? So it's like I feel you see this on the schoolyard, you know,
Yeah.
you see kids picking on a kid and then they'll just jump in because those are the cool kids, right? Not
Right.
because they don't like the kid.
Absolutely.
And obviously then there's the other scenarios where the kid will jump on the other side and stick up for the kid, but you know, I feel like if I'm that person behind, that's probably the first thought I would have is like, come on, we're all late. I'm impatient. Let's go. But then it's like, if I try to like take a step back and realize, hey, that would be me in that situation too. Like, I feel like hopefully
Right.
I would be the opposite and I would be like, hey, you know, like, let's give her a chance. She's not doing it on purpose and try to stick up for the girl,
Right.
the cashier.
Right.
But I don't know.
I like you bringing that in, right? Because that's what it is we all come together to support one another, even when we're having an unhealthy or unhappy situation or way of relating. And so we were talking about this and what are this impatience customer's perceptions from her perceptual viewpoint. And we talk about this. We have another consciousness. It's pretty funny. It's called the easy button consciousness or shortcut. And what does that mean? That means like for her, it was like, I hate waiting in line and the process of checking out. I need a shortcut. I'm the customer. So why can't I have it easy? For example.
I think that's why they created those 9 items or less line.
Exactly. Exactly. And so let's talk about another perception that she may have too there's some what's driving her impatience, right? Is codependence or what we call people pleasing consciousness. And that comes from, in her perspective, comes from she wants to people please to deliver the cupcakes on time to the party, to the event. And that's somewhat driving her impatience. And we, a lot of times, don't recognize what's driving our bad thinking, right? And then this third consciousness that we talk about, this one's an interesting one too. It's actually a little bit different from disassociation consciousness, but we call it runaway consciousness. And it's fascinating because we all kind of have it, right? It's fight or flight. And if I can't do anything right, screw you, I'm screwed, screw it, I leave, right? And that's her demanding energy that escalated or triggered the cashier into some of her perceptions, right? So share with us just a little bit, Danielle, about the cashier's perspective. What would you say hers was?
Well, dang, I want to really say thank you for bringing that point up about like we're not considering why this woman is frustrated with the cashier, that she may have someone setting an expectation on her, and so she's, you know, all of a sudden in all this fear. So thank you, because that's a really good way to look at it.
Absolutely, you're welcome. I mean, yeah, she had a tough time.
Yeah, so okay, the cashier's perspective?
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, I go straight back to my own perspective. You know, when I was a waitress and dropping stuff all over the place, is like, for me, I get really bad anxiety, and it's like, oh my god, you know, I have to perform right. This is my job. It's my source of income. There's a lot of fear that comes into this, and I want to look good. You know, I want to look like I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look like I don't know how to push buttons on a cash register, you know?
Absolutely.
So I think there's a lot of fear and anxiety going on with the cashier, and then embarrassment, you know, she walked out. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for your perspective on that. Annie, what would you say that the cashier was perceiving?
She definitely had the disassociation consciousness going, which says, I can't deal with this conflict, right? She doesn't want to connect with it and acknowledge its present and find a way to stand in her power and do something different. And then she's got this false identity consciousness going as well. That's basically when a person says, I don't believe I can make it in life, and I've got this job called being a cashier to pay my bills, and therefore I will pretend to be a cashier in order to get by in life. And I think that this is a consciousness that really penalizes people. It doesn't create good feelings. It really doesn't.
That's true.
And then this is like where we hear people marginalize themselves and says, well, I'm just a cashier, right? And it is a false identity thing, and she doesn't even like it, right? Because she ends up leaving. There is something here that is kind of special going on here. We have an older woman and a young woman. And so there's matriarchal consciousness that's triggering her as well. And her internal experience is, my mother kept reinforcing that I am useless and not capable. So when this older woman says I'm not capable, I go weak, right? Yeah. Our brains are wired to listen to our belief and then say, oh, let me make that true, right? And so it's a 1-to-1 ratio. If mom says I'm weak and useless and I go into agreement, then my brain has to produce evidence that that is true. So, here we have that older woman, and I think she fell into that habitual cycle. Okay, and then blaming consciousness, right? Everything outside of me, everything that is wrong with me is outside of me, right? So blaming says, oh, this woman ruined my day. If the person who was supposed to put the correct bakery codes into the booklet, this never would have happened. Or if I had been trained better, this never would have happened. And then so we end up saying, I blame others and life circumstances for how I feel. Right. Which, this is really important. This puts her back into that looping pattern of disassociation consciousness, because she's not standing in her power and remembering the truth of herself. She keeps going back into the denial state of, well, I can't deal with this. Right. And so she never will. So that is a lot of bad thinking.
It sure is. And when we have this consciousness problems like these that are caused because of non-loving and fear-inspired thoughts, we have these all the time and many interactions throughout our whole entire day. And really, from the after effects of this, really everyone loses. And what we want to do and support everyone and really understanding and experiencing throughout their day is, am I having bad thoughts? Am I having relating with this other person in a way that's not so positive that I could actually turn around, understanding what my consciousnesses are, what their perceptions are, so that we can come to the table and interact together more in a loving way that we intended to be.
Yeah. Love supports everyone.
It sure does.
Yeah.
So how might we approach the resolution of bad thinking?
Great question. Well, I think when we go into bad thinking, we misplace our integrity. Okay, that throws us out of the center of what I would call healthy relating.
Absolutely.
And we want healthy relating for many, many reasons, right? And there's happiness for me, there's happiness for you, and then the win-win situation, which is there's happiness for us. And that only happens when we're standing in the truth of who we are, which is love, right? Then we're standing in the middle of that integrity circle, and we're not pushing that off to the side. So yeah, that places us firmly in the middle of integrity. And then everyone feels supported around us and in every interaction, right?
Absolutely.
Because if that woman had heard at the very beginning of the story, I'm so sorry, this is like my third day, she could have made a choice right there in that moment to go, oh, we've all had our first day on the job, or our first day at school, or our first date, or whatever it is, our first day driving. And remember, what goes with that experience or lack of experience. And then she could have come from love, which would have been, you know, in this dualistic world, good thinking.
Correct.
And then the whole entire area that she had a sphere of influence on, the people behind her in line, the cashier. Yeah. So love really creates beautiful awareness within ourselves. So, yeah. Well, if you enjoyed what you heard here today, folks, please like us on Facebook. And if you're seeing this video on YouTube, please subscribe. That's the red button. And when you subscribe, you'll see a little golden bell, and ring that bell so you can get notified when we post our next video. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day consciously relating.